peddling through psychological trauma, part 2. A few days ago, I was talking to a friend of mine about psychological trauma the people in diaspora are going through. He told me, brother, what are you talking about? We African don't know anything about psychological trauma. We can afford anything. I told him, my brother, you are wrong. The African way of thinking that psychological trauma does not affect them is not true. Today, I'm being held hostage in my own house. The storm that is going on now here just locked me indoors. I can't move, I can't go anywhere, I'm just in the house. But at the same time, I cannot tell my boss that, listen, the wind, the storm, the rain that is outside there today is going to stop me from coming to work. So I'm not coming to work. You can't tell your boss you're not going to work. You're being paid because whether it is a storm going on or not, you have to report and you have to work before you get your pay. The way we Africans were living outside Uganda since M7 came to power, and we keep on thinking, say, yeah, you know, psychological problem is not our problem. That is not true. We are all going through a rough time. Even people in Europe, they know what psychological trauma is. Because when the hard time you are going through keeps on accumulating, it turns into something you cannot deny that is happening. The people back home usually think that those abroad are living in paradise. But what they forget is that the weather, whether in winter or in summer, you have to work very hard to make ends meet. If you don't work, you don't have anything to eat. If you don't work, you'll not manage to keep appearance. Whatever happen in winter, in summer, we have to pedal our way through cold weather to work. And when you do, you will be paid. Our brothers and sisters back home in Africa think we are in paradise. They think we are not going through psychological trauma as they do at all. We are hit harder than those back home. I was talking to a lady from Africa who lived in Europe for a long time. She told me that she no longer wants to read African newspapers because they are the source of our depression. I work very hard, my brother. Sometimes I do 2 jobs to help myself and those at home. But those at home has no heart at all. Imagine, I tried to build a house back home for my mother. I work so hard. I send money. I build a house. But to my surprise, my own mother sold that house. And gambled all the money. Now, I don't have a place to stay. They keep calling me, asking for more money. My brother, I've decided to write them off my list. Can you really believe that your own mom, brothers and sisters turning on the very source of income that is keeping them alive? Another friend told me he built a house. And he asked his brother, said, bro, just put the house on rent so that we can have money to help some of our brothers at home. But what he did, he gets the money, he gets the rents, and he's enjoying himself with that money. And he cut off the rest of the family. And he's still there to call me and lecture to me about money. How they are suffering back home while claiming that I'm doing nothing to help them. I was surprised when hearing her story. I looked at her and she smiled back at me. She told me that, brother, we have been going through with those problems for a long time. We accumulated the problem for a long time. I had been sending money home for building a house back home, for helping kids with school fees. with the intention that some days when I grow home, I grow old, and I go home, the same people are going to help me. But that dream didn't work, and that dream is not working out the way I wanted. Ever since I started sending money to my family, I always get back a nice photo of a house which is being constructed back home. I was really happy with the development taking place. I thought, this is good. They are doing a good job. And I kept on sending money. And it came to a time, I said to myself, now is the time to go back home and check out my investment. What I didn't know is that there was a big surprise waiting for me back home. When I got home, I could not see any building. They have been sending me a photo of a neighbor's house. I was heartbroken, and I just collapsed. My sister had to rush me to a nearby hospital, where I spent 3 days under observation. When I left the hospital, I just took the first flight back to Europe. And since then, I'm suffering, or you could say I'm pedaling through psychological trauma. And to be honest, I don't want to see them, talk to them, or be reminded about my family in Africa. You know, brethren, we living in Europe are even more depressed than people living at home. Every time you read the news paper, you hear that 10,000 people evicted from their villages because the government want to turn the entire village into a wildlife conservation area. We seem to care more about animals than our own people. Most of the people are having mental problems. Most of our people are having mental problems, but they don't realize that they are having mental problems. They don't realize that they are going through psychological trauma that is leading to various criminal activities, just as a woman going as far as poisoning our own baby over Christmas closes. Can you imagine? You hear that a radio presenter suffered acid attack after disagreement with his girlfriend. What is going on in Africa? We are not paying attention to people who are peddling through psychological trauma. The explosion we are seeing today is due to accumulated bad experience they are going through or they have gone through for a long time. And our mind, our brain can no longer hold it, and it explodes into action. Even a man of God, those who call themselves men of God, are coming out to cry loud that we Ugandans are becoming a narco state. And we are the most corrupt people in front of God. I wonder, I really wonder, whether this man of God himself is planning to meet God. Because the men of God themselves, they have become worse than those they are supposed to serve. In Uganda of today, sad news is blowing up people's mind. Bad things are happening. You wake up in the morning, you hear that the police, who are supposed to protect the people, who are supposed to make sure that we are safe, are the same police who are shooting students because they are demonstrating on the street. You hear that a policeman shot a student in Rukungiri during Christmas concerts. A young man dying on a Christmas day. When you go ahead, you hear the story. That in northern Uganda, armed men from southern Sudan claim part of Amora again. You hear that more than 15 heavily armed South Sudanese men with arms pitch camp in a Balukodi parish in Atiak sub-county. Can you imagine how these people in Atiak are paddling through psychological trauma again and again? I really don't know whether their brain can hold on any longer. Let me give you a simple example. In Moyo, in northern Uganda, not long ago, a man just grabbed a gun policeman and shot him dead. He just grabbed a gun and shot the policeman dead. Then you begin to ask yourself, what is going on? Why a sudden explosion in Uganda that everybody does not care anymore whether they live or die, what they do? When the brain knocked 100%, they just do anything because they tell themselves, I have nothing to lose. I'd been peddling this through psychological trauma for a long time. I don't see any development at all. I don't see any change at all in my situation. So the only way, it is him or me. And that is what is happening. When you accumulate all the suffering and people around you are enjoying themselves, the people around you has the possibilities to steal whatever they can steal. And you cannot put your hand on it because you don't have the source. You don't have the means and you don't have the opportunity. And that is what happened. When this man, mental problems, knocked zero, and he says, I am not going alone. I'll take you with me. And he shot the policeman dead. And you hear the story that is going on and on. That story is not stopping. That story is not, you just read any newspaper. You'll hear that another man is on a run after stabbing a girlfriend to death just because they are fighting over infidelity after staying together for several years. The outbursts we are seeing today is accumulation of bad omens that had been happening, that people had been going through, that we are peddling through, that individuals for a long period of time had been suffering. They have seen a lot, from bad to worse, from worse to bad. They don't have any time to think anymore. And they don't believe in anything anymore. Because they know that nothing is being done about it. Nobody is talking to them because they have those problems. Nobody is coming to their rescue. Nobody is doing anything anywhere. We are just there for ourselves. And they tell you, brothers and sisters, God is for all of us, but everybody is for himself. But then you begin to wonder whether that God do exist. Because if it does, they would have come to your rescue, but nobody is going to come to your rescue. And if we don't do something about the multiple killing going on in Uganda, about the conflict of interest between ourselves and those who want to have more and more and more, while the rest are having nothing, we are not going anywhere. And every time you wake up in the morning, you'll hear the same story. You'll hear about people being killed. You'll hear about things not changing the way you want. Let me tell you, people, something has to be done. We have to talk about psychological trauma, because if you don't talk about it, you just depress it. When it explodes, something bad will happen. When it explodes, someone will die. When it will explode, even your own family will not trust you anymore. Because if you look at the way you are handling your families who are trying to help you build a future for yourself, you even steal from your own family. You even depress them. You even lie to them instead of being honest and say, brothers and sisters, I didn't build a house because I used the money. I was badly off. Please, I ask for your forgiveness, but we don't do that. We just continue and continue and continue. And a lot of people in the diaspora these days, most of them have given up. They said, why should I waste my time? Why should I waste a lot of money? Why should I suffer trying to help those who don't want to be helped? This thing has turned into a sickness. Let's cure it once and for all. Thank you for listening. I will be back with peddling through psychological trauma, part 3.